Assalamu alaikum guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Myself Murza Ahmed Beg, first year MBBS student from Government Medical College, Srinagar. Today in this video we will be discussing about the heart and general body circulation. सबसे पहले हम बात करेंगे blood की. As we all know that blood act as a transporting medium for transport of the transport of various substances in our body. For example, transport of oxygen करना है from lungs to all the cells of the body. Similarly, the transport of carbon dioxide from cellular level, because carbon dioxide is produced as a metabolic waste at the cellular level. This transport of carbon dioxide from cells to the lungs, from where it will be eliminated out of the body. Similarly, for example, hormone का transport होना है from one part of the body to another part. This blood act as a medium for their transport as well. For example, transport of hormone from one part of body to another. Almost in all the transporting processes, blood act as a medium. Now it means that all the cells of the body must be supplied by blood. हमारी बॉडी के तमाम सेल्स जो हैं उनमें ब्लड पूछना चाहिए. For this heart act as a pump. Heart जो होता है that act as a pump, that is it pumps the blood to all the tissues of the body to make this transport possible. Now let us describe the structure, or let us know the general features of the heart first. Since we know that our heart has 4 chambers, 2 atria and 2 ventricles. It is 4-chambered heart. That is 2 atria and 2 ventricles. For example, this is our heart. This is the right atrium. This is the right ventricle. This is the left atrium, this is left ventricle. This musculature that separates the atrium and ventricles is called atrioventricular septum. And this musculature that separates the atria from the ventricles is called atrioventricular septum. These atria and ventricles have a connection. That is, the blood can be transported from atria towards the ventricles, because here in this septum is in the atrioventricular septum there are openings. This opening and this opening. This opening connects the left atrium with the left ventricle, and this opening connects the right atrium to the right ventricle. This opening is guarded by cusps. This opening is guarded by valves. जो यहाँ पे वैलो होती है उसमें 3 cusps present होती है. 3 cusps. That's why it's called tricuspid valve. जो वैलो होता है उसकी यही फंक्शन होती है to allow the flow of blood in a particular direction, in one direction only. For example, blood को आना है to atria towards the ventricles. Now when ventricles will contract, it will not allow the blood to go back into the atria. This is the function of a valve. Similarly, in case of this opening, it is guarded by a valve, but this time this valve has only 2 cusps, or we can say that it has only 2 leaf letters. That's why it is called a bicuspid valve. It is called a bicuspid valve, or it's also called as mitral valve. It allows the flow of blood from left atrium and towards the left ventricle, but it prevents the backflow of blood. When left ventricle contracts, it prevents the backflow of blood towards the left atrium. अब हम बात करेंगे जो vessels होती है हमारी बॉडी में. They are of 2 types, artery and a vein. Artery की real definition क्या होता है? Artery जो है that is the blood vessel that transports the blood, that takes blood away from the heart. For example, this is here a special major artery. This is called the pulmonary artery. It is here the artery because it takes the blood away from the heart. That's why it's called the artery. And vein is the vessel that brings blood towards the heart. For example, the superior and inferior vena cava. Here, from all the body organs, from all the tissues, and the main veins that supply the deoxygenated blood towards the right atrium are the superior and inferior vena cava. That's called veins. That are the major veins. Here these are called veins because they brings the blood towards the heart. That's why it's called a vein. This is the major difference between artery and a vein. अब सिमिलरली जो राइट वेंट्रिकल से एक मेजर आर्टरी निकलती है, दैट्स कॉल्ड द पल्मोनरी आर्टरी, दैट टेक्स ब्लड अवे फ्रॉम द हार्ट. सिमिलर इज द केस इन विद द लेफ्ट वेंट्रिकल. इससे भी एक मेजर आर्टरी निकलती है, दैट्स कॉल्ड द आयोटा. The main difference between pulmonary artery and aorta is that the pulmonary artery takes blood away from the heart towards the lungs. जो पल्मोनरी आर्टरी होती है ये ब्लड को ले जाती है टुवर्ड्स द लंग्स, और जो आयोटा होता है इट टेक्स द ब्लड फ्रॉम लेफ्ट वेंट्रिकल टुवर्ड्स द सिस्टमिक सर्कुलेशन, दैट इज टुवर्ड्स ऑल द बॉडी टिश्यूज. सो वी कैन से दैट अगर हमें कोई ब्लड लंग्स तक ले जाना है, दैट्स उसका यही मतलब है कि वो डिऑक्सीनेटेड ब्लड होगा, क्योंकि लंग्स में ब्लड, लंग्स की तरफ ब्लड को जाना मतलब वहां पे ऑक्सीजनेशन होना है, और उसके बाद जो ब्लड होगा सर्कुलेट टुवर्ड्स द सिस्टमिक सर्कुलेशन, और वी कैन सी दैट टुवर्ड्स ऑल द बॉडी टिश्यूज. सो वी कैन से दैट वहां पे ऑक्सीजनेटेड ब्लड जाएगा, एंड उससे फिर यहाँ फिर एक्सचेंज होगा. फॉर एग्जांपल ऑक्सीजन जाएगा टुवर्ड्स द सेल्स एंड कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड जाएगा फ्रॉम सेल्स टुवर्ड्स द ब्लड, एंड दिस ब्लड विल बी रिटर्नड एज अ deoxygenated blood by superior and inferior vena cava, and this deoxygenated blood will be then shifted towards the right atrium and right ventricle. From right atrium it will be given to the right ventricle, and right ventricle pump करेगा इस deoxygenated blood को towards the into the pulmonary artery, and pulmonary artery is deoxygenated blood को lungs तक ले जाएगा, वहां पे ऑक्सीजनेशन होके फिर वापस ब्लड आएगा towards the left atrium, and लेफ्ट एट्रियम से जो है ब्लड आएगा into the left ventricle, और फिर लेफ्ट वेंट्रिकल जब पंप करेगा that will this time this blood is oxygenated blood, and this oxygenated blood will be taken to the tissues by the aorta. Now let us take a look on the general body circulation. We know that these are the four chambers of our heart. This is right atrium, right ventricle, this is left atrium, and this is left ventricle. From the left ventricle, the oxygenated blood जो होता है, that is shifted, that is pumped into the aorta. This is the aorta, and aorta takes this oxygenated blood to all the tissues of the body. At the tissue level, the exchange of gases occurs. For example, oxygen is transported to the tissues, and from tissues carbon dioxide is taken back into the blood, and this blood now becomes the deoxygenated blood. इस blood को फिर major veins जो है, these are the major veins, from the tissues major veins takes this blood, this deoxygenated blood back to the heart into the right atrium, and therefore we can say that right ventricle, right atrium and right ventricle contains the deoxygenated blood. This blood goes into the right ventricle, and right ventricle pumps this blood, this deoxygenated blood into the pulmonary artery. This is the pulmonary artery. As we discussed earlier, that the main artery that arises from the right ventricle is the pulmonary artery, and pulmonary artery takes this deoxygenated blood to the lungs, and at the lungs the exchange of gases occurs. Carbon dioxide from the deoxygenated blood is transported to the lungs, and oxygen from the lungs, from the alveoli, is taken into the blood. And from the lungs, now the oxygenated blood, which was earlier the deoxygenated blood, returns to the left atrium through special veins that are called the pulmonary veins. That's why we can say that the pulmonary veins contain the oxygenated blood, and the pulmonary arteries contain the deoxygenated blood. अब ये deoxygenated blood आ गया through pulmonary veins into the left atrium, and left atrium से ये blood जाएगा into the oxygenated blood जाएगा into the left ventricle. फिर left ventricle pump करेगा, that the blood will be shifted to the oxygenated blood will be shifted to the aorta, and the aorta again takes this oxygenated blood to the tissue level, where the whole cycle repeats. This was the general body circulation. Now let us discuss the special cardiac musculature. As we know that जो heart होता है, the musculature of heart is called the cardiac muscle. Cardiac muscle जो होता है, cardiac musculature, that is the cardiac musculature present in heart is of two types: the general cardiac musculature, general cardiac muscle, that's called the myocardium. and the specialized cardiac muscles. That has the special property of producing an electrical impulses of its own without any external stimuli. That special cardiac muscle is distributed in the form of patches that's distributed in the whole general cardiac muscle of the heart. This is called the nodal tissue. It is the specialized cardiac muscle. These nodal tissues include SA node. This is the SA node, is the patch of this tissue. AV node, and then AV bundles, or AV bundle, that is also called a bundle of His. And then the left and right bundle branches, and then the Purkinje fibers. Our heart is myogenic. That is, it produces the action potentials, or it produces the beats without the external stimuli, without the involvement of the nervous system. This myogenic property, this heart, or we can say that our heart is auto-excitable. That is, it can be excited without any external stimuli. This auto-excitability of the heart is because of the specialized cardiac tissue, that is the nodal tissue. This cardiac tissue is distributed, this nodal tissue is distributed in the general cardiac musculature throughout the heart. For example, सबसे पहले हम बात करेंगे SA node की. SA node जो होता है, that is present in the upper right corner of right atrium. Upper right corner of right atrium. For example, this is our heart. This is the right atrium, and the SA node is present in the upper right corner. This is upper corner, and this is the upper right corner of the right atrium. This is SA node. उसके बाद जो AV node होता है, AV node is present in the lower left corner of right atrium. इसी right atrium के lower left corner पे present होता है AV node. उसके बाद हम बात करेंगे उस AV node से निकलती है AV bundles. A specialized nodal muscle bundle, that's called the AV bundle. AV bundle, or we can say that it's also called bundle of His. This bundle is called the bundle of His. I really don't know why it's not called the bundle of His or bundle of her. It is called the bundle of His. इस bundle of His से निकलती है दो branches, left and right bundle branches. इससे निकलती है left and right bundle branches. This is the right bundle branch, this is the left bundle branch. And these left and right bundle branches are supplied into the respective ventricles. These left and right bundle branches give special small fibers that innervate all the myocardium of the ventricles. These are called the Purkinje fibers. And these SA node and AV node are connected by special nodal tissue. For example, this is our SA node, this is our AV node, and this is the bundle of His. It runs in the interventricular septum. This is the interventricular septum. This is the interventricular septum. This is the bundle of His. At the top of interventricular septum, this bundle of His gives two branches. These are called the left and right bundle branches. And these left and right bundle branches gives special fibers, small thin fibers. These are called the Purkinje fibers. And the SA node and AV node are connected by special conducting fibers, and similar special conducting fiber is present here. So this whole nodal tissue has the special property of producing the action potentials without any external stimuli. जो when जो action potentials होते हैं वो different patches, जो different positions of the nodal tissue. For example, SA node can produce different number of action potentials. AV node can produce different number of action potentials, and these Purkinje fibers can produce different number of action potentials. But the main contraction ability of the heart is governed by the SA node. It is controlled by the contraction of the heart is controlled by SA node. That is, जब भी हमारा heart beat करता है, तो that SA node is responsible for that, because SA node is the master of this nodal tissue. That's why it's called the pacemaker of heart. Pacemaker of heart. जो ही SA node action potential produce करता है, these action potentials are transmitted to the AV node. जो ही इसमें these action potentials are transmitted to the atria, both the atria starts contracting. When both the atria starts contracting, we know that this oxygenated blood comes from the through pulmonary veins. The oxygenated blood that comes from the pulmonary veins into the left atrium, and then into the left atrium. These valves are, सबसे पहले हम बात करेंगे जो ये valves होते हैं, these are the bicuspid and tricuspid valves are called AV valves. And जो होता है जो यहाँ से निकलता है pulmonary artery, and यहाँ से निकलता है aorta. These have the special valves. These are called semilunar valves, SL valves, or we can say that semilunar valves. जो ही SA node action potential produce करता है, the action potential separates into the whole atrium, both in the left as well as the right atrium. And the blood, यहाँ पे जो blood होता है accumulate होता है from the pulmonary veins, और यहाँ से जो blood आता है from the major venous, that accumulated blood in the atria. जो ही atria SA node action potential produce करता है, atria contract करता है, और ये blood जो है that is transported from left atrium towards the left ventricle, and from the right atrium में जो blood है that will be transported to the left ventricle. And जो action potential है that is reached at the AV node. जो एक्शन पोटेंशियल AV नोड की एक स्पेशल प्रॉपर्टी होती है, जो एक्शन पोटेंशियल SA नोड प्रोड्यूस करेगा, हम ऐसे सोचते हैं जो SA नोड एक्शन पोटेंशियल प्रोड्यूस करता है, जो ही ये प्रोड्यूस करता है वो यहाँ पर पहुंचेगा, क्योंकि इट हैज अ फास्ट कंडक्शन वेलोसिटी. लेकिन जो ही एक्शन पोटेंशियल प्रोड्यूस्ड बाय SA नोड पहुंचता है AV नोड तक और ये कॉन्ट्रैक्ट करता है, दिस AV नोड हैज अ स्पेशल एबिलिटी टू डिले दिस एक्शन पोटेंशियल. ये इस वेलोसिटी को वहां पे थोड़े टाइम के लिए रोक लेता है. बिकॉज अब अगर ये एक्शन पोटेंशियल पूरे हार्ट में एक साथ फैल जाता, पूरा हार्ट एक टाइम पे कॉन्ट्रैक्ट करता, जो यहाँ पे ब्लड होता और यहाँ पे ब्लड होता, वो एक साथ कॉन्ट्रैक्ट होता, वहां पे कोई मकसद ही नहीं निकलता. जो ये AV नोड जो डिले प्रोड्यूस करता है, उसकी वजह से क्या होता है, दैट अलाउज द एट्रिया टू कॉन्ट्रैक्ट फर्स्ट एंड देन फॉलोड बाय द कॉन्ट्रैक्शन ऑफ वेंट्रिकल्स, एंड दैट इज द नीडेड प्रोसेस. अब जो ही एक्शन पोटेंशियल यहाँ पे इस एट्रिया में पहुंच गया, उसने कॉन्ट्रैक्ट किया वेंट्रिकल्स को, इसने दोनों एट्रिया को कॉन्ट्रैक्ट किया, और जो ब्लड था वो चला गया फ्रॉम एट्रिया टुवर्ड्स द वेंट्रिकल्स. उसके बाद जब ये AV नोड जो उसने डिले किया था, अब वो एक्शन पोटेंशियल जाएगा इनटू द वेंट्रिकल्स, इनटू दिस नोडल टिश्यू. अब वेंट्रिकल्स पंप करेंगे, जो ब्लड आ गया, दैट जो एट्रिया से ब्लड आ गया, दैट इज ट्रांसपोर्टेड टू द वेंट्रिकल्स, एंड जो एक्शन पोटेंशियल वेंट्रिकल्स तक पहुंच गया, अब वेंट्रिकल्स पंप बीट करेंगे, वेंट्रिकल जो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट करेंगे, दिस ब्लड विल बी ट्रांसपोर्टेड from the left ventricle towards the aorta, and from the right ventricle towards the pulmonary artery. And pulmonary artery carries this deoxygenated blood that is present in the right ventricle towards the lungs where oxygenation occurs, and from the lungs the oxygenated blood is transported towards the left atrium through pulmonary veins. And the pulmonary veins, the oxygenated blood that has transported from the left ventricle, by the pumping action it goes into the aorta, and aorta then transports this blood into the whole body tissues. This is the pumping activity of our heart. अब जो ऐसे नोड जो डिफरेंट nodal tissue है, for example SA node, AV node, Purkinje fibers, these have different these can produce the different number of action potentials. SA node जो है, since it is the monster of the heart, it's called the pacemaker of heart, it produces the action potentials of 70 to 75 times 70 to 75 action potentials per minute. इसका मतलब है एक एक्शन पोटेंशियल से हार्ट एक वन टाइम बीट करता है। 70 to 75 एक्शन पोटेंशियल्स आएंगे एक मिनट में, तो हार्ट जो बीट करेगा दैट विल बी 70 to 75 बीट्स पर मिनट। दैट्स व्हाई वी कॉल जो हार्ट बीट होती है नॉर्मल हार्ट बीट, दैट इज 70 to 75 बीट्स पर मिनट, एंड द एवरेज ऑफ व्हिच इज 72 बीट्स पर मिनट। This was all about the general body circulation. Thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe this channel and like the video.